continue our working day. Now we'll go back to Crimea. No one forgets it, but because of the events in the east, that issue has become of secondary importance. But we'll be talking now about political persecutions of Maidan activists. I would like to invite Oleksandra Matviychuk, Euromaidan SOS, activist of Euromaidan, Stanislav Krasnov, and Borys Zakharov, the director of the Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union Advocacy Center. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, it's not just in the East that we are faced with the problems of violation of human rights. There are three realities on the territory of Ukraine. One reality is the life on the part of the territory which is controlled by Ukraine, life in independent democratic Ukraine. The second reality is the war reality, the reality of violating the human rights on the occupied territory by Russian troops and terrorists. And the third reality on the occupied territory of Crimea and in the city of Sevastopol, where all fundamental rights and freedoms are violated. From the very beginning of annexation of Crimea, mass persecutions of activists of Euromaidan started. Those who were against annexation, who participated in Euromaidan, many of them were arrested and accused in some criminal crimes, like the famous producer Sentsov. Many activists were kidnapped. Many of them were tortured. The first big case was the kidnapping and killing of Rishat Ametov, the Crimean Tatar activist who was detained on the 3rd of March by so-called Crimean self-defense in the central square of Simferopol and disappeared. In 10 days, his body with the signs of torturing was discovered in Zemlyanichna village. The cause of the death, the wound into the eye. After that, 5 more persons were missing. 7 more activists then disappeared later. The Ukrainian occupational authorities say that they're interested in investigating such missing and killings, but the investigation is not going on. But at the same time, they are creating the whole system of persecutions in Russia, the system which as if protects people from the actions of Euromaidan. There was a special committee set up of protecting the people who suffered from Euromaidan. We know that many Berkut and militiamen who are suspected in committing crisis, they are hiding in Crimea. In Crimea, there was a committee on protecting of their rights created, protecting their rights from the actions of Euromaidan activists, and the criminal cases are started, and people are activists of Euromaidan are being arrested. Besides persecuting the activists of Euromaidan, they enclose all independent mass media. The only independent mass media is ATR Crimea. The human rights are violated in the sphere of freedom of speech and freedom of meetings. The principle of the retroactive action of the law is also in place. The Russia says that people were committing crimes even in the times when the territory was part of Ukraine. Ukrainian state cannot efficiently protect the human rights in Crimea. The principle of rule of law doesn't work. The only way we can protect our compatriots who are in such a situation is appealing to international courts, international bodies, and taking into account the fact that now the negotiations were held on exchange of prisoners of war. We understand that we exchange terrorists for hostages. The list of hostages should include people against which political persecutions are going on in Crimea. One of such persons is Oleksandra Kostenko, who's an activist of Euromaidan, who was arrested illegally. He was arrested with violation of all the international rules and laws, and he's detained illegally. And we demand from our authorities to include the prisoners, political prisoners who are in Crimea, into the list of this exchange. Now, the friend of Oleksandra Kostenko, who's arrested in Crimea, will talk in more detail about the arrest itself and about detention. Good afternoon, I'm Stanislav Krasnov. Oleksandra Kostenko is a person I've known for many years, and together with him we were at Euromaidan all the time. When he was arrested, we learned about that via mass media. I managed, with the help of my friends, to get the resolution of the court on his arrest. And I would like to draw your attention to this senseless, illegal resolution. It says that Oleksandra Kostenko is suspected in knowing about what's happening in Kiev during the mass disorders directed towards against the constitutional system of Ukraine, and also being the member of the nationalist party Svoboda, came to Maidan in Kiev. And that is the beginning of this resolution, which is senseless. Why, for example, Russia is judging the citizen of Ukraine who was sort of committing crimes on the territory of Ukraine. Also, I would like to say that Oleksandra Kostenko has never been committing any illegal actions. That was a peaceful protest. He was responsible for some administrative functions at Euromaidan. Here it says why he was arrested. It says that he had the stones of the size of 10 by 10 by 12 centimeters. He threw at the Ukrainian militiaman such a stone. He hit his hand, and this way caused a short, light body injury. I was there that day in Maidan together with Alexander all day. I know exactly that he wasn't throwing stones. He was helping the medical service, which was in the October Palace, to evacuate because there was the assault at Zhovtnevi at October Palace, and he was taking out the wounded people and taking out the medical equipment from the Zhovtnevi Palace. Also, it says that as if Alexander Kostenko is the member of the right sector of the radical party Svoboda. We have an official reply. Our lawyers requested Svoboda party, and we have announced that he has never been the member of Svoboda party and has nothing to do with that party. That is about this case, about the so-called court resolution, but also for a long time, from the beginning of summer, we, myself, Alexander, and other people would receive such call-up paper, and Alexander Kostenko has it, and other activists like Alexander Boltyan, who's an activist from Yevpatoria. We are suspected in criminal case. That's the same criminal case. The same investigator, Adarchenko, and Kostenko knew that he cannot be in Simferopol in Crimea. Last time he was here in November 2014, then he disappeared from Ukraine. I doubt that he went there voluntarily to Crimea. Also, I would like to say that there were repressions not just against Kostenko, but people would come to me, and the FSB representatives also came to me and to other guys, and we lost contact with many of them. Thank you for attention. Esteemed colleagues, I am Oleksandra Matviychuk, the coordinator of Euromaidan SOS initiative. I want to draw attention to three things. First, now on the occupied peninsula, there are mass repressions going on in different forms, using legal mechanisms and illegal. Illegal, like what Borys is talking about, kidnapping, torturing, beating activists, participants of the Action for the Unity of Ukraine, the journalists, the representatives of Crimean Tatar people who are in a systemic opposition to occupational authorities. And another part of persecution is persecution which is illegal searches, illegal arrests, while filing the fabricated administrative and criminal cases. And we came to this press conference because we see the new wave of such persecutions, and we can do nothing but appeal to journalists, to international community, because we deal with occupational authorities which are persecuting the most active people, the journalists, the participants of Euromaidan, representatives of Crimean Tatar community for political, and the political motive is very clear. They are trying to force people to stop any activity, and it is to strengthen the occupational authorities. Occupational authorities are sending two signals to people who live in Crimea: be silent or leave, otherwise you will be put to prison. And even having the text of this resolution, this political motive could be clearly seen here when we see that Kostenko Alexander is suspected in knowing about mass disorders in Kiev directed against the constitutional system of Ukraine. Euromaidan, peaceful protest, what we call the revolution of dignity. This court, which operates on the occupational territory, calls the illegal attempt to do away with constitutional system. And that is why we can say that any participant of Euromaidan potentially can receive such a resolution of the court. One more thing is that this accusation is absolutely absurd. Whether he had a stone in his hand or whether he didn't have a stone in his hand, but Russian Federation is persecuting the citizen of Ukraine for the committed by him on the territory of Ukraine action, which according to the words was the action against the citizen of Ukraine and the representative of law enforcement bodies. That is beyond any legal framework and beyond the common sense. Unfortunately, that absurdity of the accusation does not stop the occupational authorities, and we are concerned that such call-up papers are sent to other activists. We are concerned that looking at what's happening in the peninsula, people who live there are deprived of any effective methods of legal defense. And we have to state, we have to address the citizens of Crimea who believe that if they did not do anything illegal, they cannot become this sacrifices of such persecutions. But this case is, we call upon people who live in Crimea to assess all their risks and take care of their own safety and security. And now we would like to leave some time for your questions. Do you have any questions? Could you please tell Stanislav, how do you know that the person was tortured? Did you talk to parents or to people who were communicating with Oleksandr after he was arrested? What do you know about circumstances of detention? Where was he detained? How was he taken to Crimea? I will start. Well, the organizations, we do not know much. The last time he was seen in November 2014 in Kiev. After that, he disappeared. Even his parents, who live in Crimea, came to Kiev and wrote application. And then his friends learned about the arrest of Oleksandr Kostenko. Now the parents do not contact. They don't communicate to the advocacy organizations. We do not have any information, but the situation itself is very strange. Unfortunately, we can compare that with other cases where participants of Euromaidan were detained. That was in March, when Andriy Shikun, Anatoly Kovalsky, and 6 more people were detained. So torches were applied, electric current, they were shooting at their legs and arms. And we know that because after these people were liberated, we talked to them. I went to the hospital to Andriy Shikun, and I saw that. Talking about Oleksandr Kostenko, we have no information. And that is like a message to people who know him in Crimea, who sent to us this resolution of the court. Please provide more information to us, because Ukrainian advocacy groups cannot work on the occupied territory. I would like to add one thing, that the circumstances of how he got to Crimea forced us to think that there was a betrayal. It is probable that someone of Ukrainian law enforcement officers, maybe Security Service of Ukraine, was cooperating with the occupational authorities of Crimea. And this way, he got to Crimea and was imprisoned. That is the personal opinion of Borys Zakharov. We as organization, because we don't have enough information, we don't have any position on that. Anatoly Kovalsky, they were kidnapped. That's a famous case. They were receiving the parcel at the railway station. By train, they were sent, the Ukrainian flags were sent to them, and the representatives of Crimean self-defense detained them. Euromaidan SOS had a mobile group, and we came to the railway department where the Crimean self-defense took Shikun. They said that there's no such person detained, but later we learned that he was there, and these people from law enforcement bodies transferred them to others who kept him there for 11 days and who were torturing. Please ask your questions into the microphone. Were the cases when the activists were kidnapped on the continental territory of Ukraine, so that such activists were taken to Crimea? I can tell you that there is one case, the activist of Euromaidan who was with us, Maxim Hudan. He participated in warfare in ATO. He disappeared near Donetsk, and now he is in Lefortovo in Moscow. There's the whole list in internet. There are more than 40 persons who are citizens of Ukraine who disappeared from the territory of Ukraine, and they are officially in detention in the prisons of Russian Federation. Your question was about Crimea. I don't know such data, so I cannot either confirm nor deny, but a few dozens of people, and these are not just famous cases like a case about Nadia Savchenko, people who were kidnapped on the territory of Ukraine, on the territory of Donetsk and Lugansk regions. Now they're in different prisons. More than that, continuing your question, the occupied territory is a special status. From there, you cannot take anyone to another country, to the country aggressor. That's violation of Geneva Conventions. And the fact that Oleksandra, Kolchenko, Afanasyev, and Chernyadze, people who were detained in Crimea and they are taken to Moscow, that's a violation of human rights. I work a lot in the NGO sector. I'm from Donetsk region. I would like to wish you success. Please tell me, did you address the law enforcement bodies about that? If yes, then what is the status of that? Basically, the advocacy organizations, together with their colleagues from Crimea, prepared recommendations to the authorities, and last week we had a meeting which we organized for Crimean activists. I will not name them, with the representatives of the authorities and the international and diplomatic corps. One of our recommendations that was suggested by Crimean activists is that if there's a fact of illegal arrest, kidnapping, torturing, the General Prosecutor Office should, in parallel, initiate criminal cases. And I believe that the criminal case was initiated on kidnapping, on illegal arrest of Oleg Sentsov. The General Prosecutor's Office started working in parallel, and we hope that is not a single case, but a system. We can say that. Thank you for your question. We have no more questions. Thank you. I believe in 2 weeks we will again be discussing the topic of Crimea. This will be this bad anniversary, and we'll be talking again about that. And I hope there will be ways to resolve all these issues.